Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV for this very special edition of the Deep Dive. I have, of course, got with me Josh Williams, and I'm delighted to bring in Jamie Carragher as well. Thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Yes, this is an annual occurrence, isn't it? Now
It very much is, mate. In 156 in Crosby as well. Get them a little shout out. Thank you very much. Do you know what? The owner got a bit bored of you, though, mate. He asked us to bring Slot next time. He said, I've seen Jamie a few times. Will you get Slot for us next time?
Well, he's got to look at Slot, hasn't he?
So we're here to talk about, obviously, the Carabao Cup final. How big a game do you think it will be, Jamie, for Newcastle? Obviously, it's been 50 years since they've won a trophy.
It'll be a massive game for... Listen, obviously, the cup final a couple of years ago, I think, against Man United, I think they're probably in a better position, sort of psychologically, and that they've got the experience of that. But they had a bit of bad luck going into the last final. I think they've got a bit of bad luck going into this one in terms of who they're missing. And I think they know that if they're going to beat Liverpool, they have to be at their absolute best. I think that's fair to say. And, going into the game, they're not at their absolute best in terms of the players they're going to have on the pitch. It's not going to be their best team, but it's just whether the players on the pitch can, produce their absolute best on the day and, bring a trophy finally home for them. But hopefully that's not the case to be.
Fingers crossed anyway. Yeah, I think I misspoke before. I think it's 70 years, not 50. I think it was 55 or something like that. They won the FA Cup last. They won the Intertoto Cup in, do you remember the year, Josh? 2006, mate. 2006, I think they won the Intertoto Cup. Jamie, for you then, what's Liverpool's biggest strength heading into this game?
I think it's just the experience of winning trophies, playing at Wembley. I think we've got a lot of players now who've been there a lot, in the last few years as well. I think Newcastle haven't got that. As I said, they played there a couple of years ago. And I think the thing of... I always felt this going into a cup final as a Liverpool player. We weren't always the favourites in the games that we went into, but you think you're Liverpool. You're supposed to be here. You're supposed to win. You're supposed to win a cup final. Certain clubs don't have that. Newcastle don't have that. And it's just, it's not to do with those players. It's the history of the club. It's the badge. It's a feeling. It's sometimes difficult to explain that. And we speak about this a lot in the Champions League. Sometimes a club and a badge, I think Real Madrid do it all the time, where they beat teams because they're Real Madrid, not necessarily because they have better players than the opposition. And to be fair, they've done that to us, I think, in cup finals. But I think that'll be Liverpool's biggest strength. It won't feel like the biggest game in the world. It'll feel like a big game. We're supposed to be here. We're supposed to win, and we're going to win.
Yeah, we won it with the kids last year as well, Josh. So that should give us a little bit more. We're the holders. We won it with the kids. We know how to do this now. We win cup finals all the time. We're there. But think about Newcastle then. For you, what is their biggest strength?
I think there's a few that come to mind for me. I think the intensity of Newcastle, generally speaking, is usually their biggest strength for me. I think whenever you think of a Newcastle game in which they perform really well, it usually consists of the midfield, in particular, bullying the opposition midfield. I think usually, you see the likes of Joe Linton, Bruno, Tonali, just running all over everyone else, basically. Whereas I think if you think of a typical City dominant performance, it's a bit slower, it's a bit more controlled and that sort of thing. So I think that's one. I think Eddie Howe as well is just a bit of a transition coach. So I think that's what he gets into his players, the whole direct front to back quickly, a bit of a basketball game and things. I think they're typically good with that when they've got everyone fit at least. And I think the striker is an obvious one. I think that's probably what most people are thinking about. Like he's arguably the best in the Premier League. I think Haaland comes to mind, but I don't know about you, Jamie, but I think for me he's more complete than Haaland, which sounds mad because Haaland's like rapid, 6'4" or something, scores 30 a season, but Isak's just got that technical edge to him, I think, and he can drift into the wide areas, cause issues there. Haaland for me is a strict, penalty box 9 who's a killer, but I think Liverpool have got to take care of Isak above everything else.
I actually think the Isak matchup with Virgil van Dijk, and I was thinking of the matchup because I think of who can score the goal against us, who can sort of give us a tough time at the back, and I was thinking obviously Isak, and I was thinking Anthony Gordon. I actually think Anthony Gordon being out is arguably a bigger problem for Newcastle, in that I still back Van Dijk to look after Isak. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold against Anthony Gordon, I think, that could go either way. That's my feeling of it. So if you say to me, Anthony Gordon's out, unfortunately for the lad, but I think that probably helps us more in some ways. That Anthony Gordon's out, because he's given Trent a couple of difficult moments. I think did he get sent off, or he nearly got sent off a couple of years ago at Newcastle?
Oh, I thought it was the derby where Trent got up against Gordon in the derby a few years back.
No, the one, I think Van Dijk actually got sent off in the game, but Trent nearly got sent off against Newcastle very early on in the first half. He was probably lucky to stay on against Gordon. So I think them missing Anthony Gordon is a problem for them, and obviously missing Lewis Hall down there. I don't know if I'm getting into stuff I shouldn't be getting into.
You can do if you know.
No, but I actually think now with them missing Anthony Gordon, missing Lewis Hall, who was a left back who will try and look after Salah, but he's left footed. He'll try and get forward. They could almost go completely the other way now and actually make it more difficult for us, where they actually go, we're going to put Joel in the left wing and he's going to have Mark Trent. Almost like he's just going to go there for power. We put Willock in there. So we're not actually thinking of maybe getting him behind. We're just going to be awkward. We're going to go along to Joe Linton. The left backs now is going to be right-footed. So it's not about him getting forward. I'm stopping Salah. It's almost like, do you understand what I mean? So it becomes not us against an Eddie Howe team, Newcastle as you normally expect, more of actually, we're going to play like a bit like a Mourinho team. It's a bit like, we can't take you on yet because we haven't got our best team, but we're going to make it as awkward as we possibly can. We're not going to take too many chances around the back. We're going to go along to Joe Linton. We're going to play on the second ball. We've got power in midfield. And
it's that like before you knew what they were going to try and do.
Yes.
Now Slot doesn't have a clue what they're going to do because you think it could be anything now.
Not so much. If that vibe was Eddie Howe, that's the way I'd go. I'd just go there and think, okay, power, strength. We don't want this footballing game that everyone's coming to see, that we might have said, okay, let's bring it on. We fancy ourselves. Our three in midfield are good. Got Isak up front with Anthony Gordon on the left. We think can cause problems. I think they might go the other way now and try and make it a bit more attritional and and make it a fight and a battle.
I am getting ahead of myself here, right, with the agenda. But one thing I've just thought of then: what if you do Isak over here?
Yeah.
Up against Trent, because he's done that before, and you could do Callum Wilson technically through the middle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a realistic option, because if they haven't got Gordon, the alternative is Barnes. Barnes could potentially do it.
He's more of a super. He comes off the bench, doesn't he? More and has an impact. Harvey Barnes. So I like Harvey Barnes. I think he's a good player.
Yeah. But I'm just thinking about. I think you make a good point on the Isak Van Dijk thing, and if you want to really exploit Liverpool's main weakness, which we're going to get onto, it probably is the right side. Which we've got plenty of examples this season where we've been exploited over there. Yeah. Fulham, Man United, Man City. Loads of examples that we're going to touch on.
Well, before we touch on that, then I just want your opinion, Jamie, on Isak first and foremost. Obviously, Josh mentioned it before. Top draw player. Could be £150 million moving in the summer, etc., etc. Like, do you think Isak and changes almost Newcastle? Does it make it harder for Newcastle in some ways? Because you've played with Torres up front with Liverpool. And the man behind Torres wasn't Fernando Torres. And when he was out, I always felt that Liverpool struggled a little bit because the focal point of their team was Fernando Torres, and rightfully so. Does it feel a bit like Newcastle's in some ways in the same position where Callum Wilson, good player, had a great career, nowhere near as fast, nowhere near as lethal though. And it was almost, because when Wilson plays, for me anyway, they just can't be Newcastle. Because Isak is the point of the spear.
That's the same for every team. We've got an unbelievable striker. You can't have good backup for them. Harry Kane at Tottenham. People just, we're going to buy. Who are you going to buy? Who's going to sit on the bench? You can't. Conte tried it by bringing in Richarlison for 60 million. And it's been a disaster, the actual transfer fee. But he thought he could probably get away with it. He had Son on the left. He had Kane up front. Richarlison can do both. But just sat on the bench every week. Unless they get an injury, they're not missing games. And in the end, you spent £60 million on a guy who's on the bench rather than putting it somewhere else in your team. So it's very difficult for a team to have a striker so good and have backup. Man City, basically, Haaland started every game in the Premier League except the Liverpool one. And then what did they do? They had Foden as a false nine. Yeah, so they haven't got any backup for him. As soon as Alvarez won the World Cup with Argentina, I knew he wouldn't be at Man City that much longer. Because a World Cup winner's not going to sit on the bench. And he's got Haaland. Now, they had a little spell of trying to play him a little bit attacking midfield, a bit Alvarez, but I think Guardiola saw him because he thought, I can't keep him happy. 80 million, just bank it, because he's just going to cause me. He's going to be knocking on his door every Monday morning saying, why isn't he playing? He's won the World Cup. So I think in terms of Newcastle and Isak, it's just when someone is that good, you have to play to his strengths, and you just have to hope that he's fit. And that is the one little question mark against him. He's not someone who plays every game. He's not. And that's when I think about Liverpool. You said before about him being the best striker. Me, if I'm being personally, all round, yes, I'd still have Haaland. I think there's a mentality about Haaland. I think he's average as a player, but he's just got that killer inside. I know he's got it as well, but when you talk about paying 150 million, how old is he? 26?
25, I think.
25.
You need him to play 38 games a season, don't you? That's the thing, when you're paying 150 million for a player.
That's what I'm saying, and I don't know if that's something that Liverpool would rightly look at. In terms of ability-wise, you'd love him to be up front for Liverpool, wouldn't you? And you'd pay a good dollar for him, but I just think we know as well as anyone, don't we, the model of Liverpool. I just don't know if Liverpool play that for somebody's 24, 26 next season.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not our money, is it? But
No,
I mean,
and that's the thing, isn't it? But I don't know, where like, we as football fans, we do think about that stuff now. When I was a kid growing up, it didn't matter to me. But now you do think about it. You know more about the finances of the club and stuff. You get embroiled in this. You're almost an accountant as much as a fan at times, aren't you? And all this type. At least we're not Arsenal fans with the net spend nonsense anyway. So
we used to be with Rafa.
Yeah, absolutely. So Liverpool's biggest weakness then, and what do you think Newcastle will try and exploit? What do you think it is, Jamie?
Well, it's whether Newcastle got the players to exploit it. And being totally honest, I think I think the wide areas for us defensively.
Is that left and right then?
I think so. I think what you've got right now on the right hand side. Listen, we know Trent's strengths have always been on the ball, and we also know that Mo Salah, especially under this manager, it was the same under Klopp a little bit. He's given license to sort of stay here. You know, he's getting old as a player. I likened him to sort of Messi in that when Messi was coming to the end of his career, he wouldn't defend. He just, obviously a slightly different position in these central areas, but he's almost just hanging back here, saving his energy for the counter-attack. He's not back to help Trent. He was against Man City. He was, because he needed it. He needed that help there. But I think in the main, he probably doesn't get the protection that other fullbacks get. And I think Andy Robertson is willing as anything, but he's not quite the same player, which is, it happens to all of us, especially as defenders, when you get into your 30s. So they're definitely the areas where I think opposition teams can get us. But with Anthony Gordon not being there, you just mentioned Isak could play there, and what comes to mind is, remember that dribble he done at Everton? At Goodison. I don't know if he was on the left that night, but he ends up dribbling down here and getting to the byline. One of the best things you've ever seen. Jacob Murphy on the right side. He's a runner. He's game. I think Andy Robertson can handle that, if I'm being totally honest. And it's just whether, as I said, Eddie, how things, do I go with Harvey Barnes on the left? Can he give Trent a tough time? Or do I go with a more powerful option there? Who knows? But I think with Anthony Gordon being out, I'm not sure they've got the sort of the players to... They've got players who can hit Liverpool, but not absolutely kill them.
Yeah, okay. And Josh, what about you then? Newcastle's biggest weakness, mate?
I think there's two for me. I think with Lewis Hall being out and Sven Botman also missing the final as well, they've got a bit of an ageing back line. I think Livramento is still able to get up and down the flanks, but on the opposite side, you've probably got Trippier coming in for the final, I'd assume.
Who do you think will play right back or left back? They could do either, couldn't they, really?
Yeah. I think Livramento, man, they can both do it, you know. Livramento was very two-footed, but Trippier, I remember Trippier made the World Cup squad, didn't he? Because he could play both sides. And then at the back, you've got Fabian Schär and you've got Dan Burn. So I think three of those four are over 30. So I think if you can get in behind them, which I think Liverpool did at Anfield recently, I think you can cause them some issues. And I think it's not really a weakness, but the way in which they press, and it remains to be seen whether they will do it in this game or not. But the whole man-for-man approach to pressing that Eddie Howe likes, we saw it recently. I don't know if you did the game or not, for the Newcastle Man City game. I've got a viz for the viewers now, but you can see there, like, Newcastle man marking all over the pitch. Ederson's got the ball, and what essentially happens is Haaland just drops, takes, I think it's Dan Burn with him, and if we move on to the next viz, Ederson just hits the ball into the space. Marmoush wins it because he's quicker than Schär, and I think that's the problem. I think if you're PSG, like we saw recently, you can go man for man because you're just elite everywhere. If you're Newcastle, you haven't got the man for man edge all over the pitch. I mean, man for man, Trippier is not going to have Salah on toast, is he? You know, I can't see that.
I think this is not just Newcastle. This is something we're going to actually get onto Monday Night Football. And that this is the game's sort of in the last year, 18 months has become a man-to-man game, and the opposition goalkeeper's got it. Really, I mean, what you got to say there is, even though Alisson played the long ball in PSG, I don't think Alisson's got it in his locker to take people out of the game like Ederson has in terms of getting it actually over them. So I think
Virgil has.
Virgil has, of course, yeah. But it'd be interesting to see if they do that. I mean, every time I watch Newcastle play, they do that. They don't really, they go for it, don't they? If they're going to do it against Man City away, I know they got caught out, but you'd think a neutral venue against Liverpool, maybe they will. I hope they do.
I think it'll give Liverpool scope to like use Trent and Virgil in particular. I think they're probably the two who could find that pass. And as I said, if you can pull them out of place a little bit and get, someone like a Salah or something, or even like a Diaz or someone in a race with them 30-year-olds that I'm thinking about, I think you can get some joy there. But that's just one.
I think you're right. We've got a perfect example here, haven't we, of us doing it against Manchester City. So we'll put the viz on the screen now, and you can see there. Obviously, we've played with like 2 10s at times recently, where Jones has been the sort of fourth midfielder and stuff. Jamie.
Well, we've to be honest, there was a lot of talk about that. I'm sure you did as well. We highlighted this a few months ago. Liverpool did this at Tottenham. That was the first time I think I saw it where, Diaz not the first time. Diaz has been in that position a lot. You go back to I think the Bayer Leverkusen game at home.
He got a hat-trick in that one as well.
Yeah. So I think this idea that we sort of didn't play with a striker in this game, I think it's been happening a lot all season, to be honest, because we don't play the way Klopp did, where you'd have Firmino drop, you'd have a 3, and you'd have almost like a diamond, and you'd have Firmino dropping in. Szoboszlai's always been higher than the other two, and then Diaz was just coming into this sort of left space, and even Jota early on in the season. I remember something the manager said. When a new manager comes in, we know the players better than him. Do you know what I mean? It's like we've watched them every week for sort of 3, and he said something about Jota, and I thought, that's not Jota. He was talking about Jota and Nunes, saying Jota, whoever he was playing in front at the start of the season, Jota had the ability to almost come into this pocket on the left and almost like pick it up. I'm thinking, that's not Jota. I mean, the ball can just sometimes hit his knee, can't it? And you know what I mean?
It sort of bundles through sometimes, doesn't it?
My point being is, even though Jota was the centre forward, in the manager's head, I think he wants that at times where Szoboszlai's almost more on the right, number 10, and he wants the striker sometimes to come into this pocket to create that. Diaz makes it easy for him because he's coming from the left anyway. Yeah. And it was probably a step different at City because it was more like Curtis Jones, so it is more of a midfield player. But I don't know if that was Gakpo on the bench, or he wasn't involved.
No, he wasn't involved, was he? It was Diaz, wasn't it, off the left-hand side?
No, but it was Gakpo on the bench.
I think he was injured for the City game.
That's my point. So I actually think if Gakpo might have been fit, it might have been a Curtis Jones, it still might have been a Diaz in that role. So I think Liverpool have been doing this for a while, this thing of not playing with a supposedly centre forwards. I think this is something that the manager wants.
Well, that question on that then, obviously we still saw early on in the season Trent Alexander-Arnold coming from this position, and he still does occasionally sort of get into the middle, nowhere near as much as last season, the way he was inverting. I think for me anyway, it's Slot's way of getting 4 bodies and getting that sort of box midfield, just doing it in a different way to what Arteta and Guardiola have been doing it with their sort of fullbacks. And that's where this Curtis Jones and Dominic Szoboszlai thing comes in. And Josh, just talk us through, explain like what we're thinking might happen if we were to play like the 2 10s, as it were.
Yeah, well, I think going back to the man marking thing, the issue you've got is, I think I agree with Jamie. I think Liverpool have been doing this for a while. I think the personnel almost is, to an extent, irrelevant unless you're Nunes. I think Nunes can only go one way. I think some of the others can come a little bit deeper than that. But if you're playing against a man-marking system like that, if you've got 2 10s who are dropping deeper like that, the 2 centre-halves should technically go with them. And then you've got the space here, like we can show on the Manchester City viz, where then Salah, maybe a Gakpo, can finish the move then for you. It wouldn't be so much the case against the team that would maybe mark zonally in a press or something like that, because with Newcastle, you kind of know what they're going to do. That's just a potential means of exploiting that maybe. So it's not necessarily a weakness, but it can be turned into one, I suppose, if Liverpool do it right.
Well, we did that to Tottenham. That's the 6-3 game. I mean, I think 2 or 3 of the goals at times, that was basically it. That's why it worked perfectly, with their centre-backs getting out. And then I think it was Diaz actually was making Gakpo was it on the left and Salah on the right. That caused them real problems that day.
Did you ever get asked to do that in your career?
Plays a false nine.
No, the man-to-man into the middle of the pitch, follow them.
No. It was.
Where's it come from? But if you're thinking history of football tactics, why are we going back to man-to-man?
I've been thinking about this a while. So, Atalanta have had great success over the last 2 years. But what's happened now? Every team plays out. No one plays long. So what you're doing is you're sort of setting up, and we've done it on Monday Night Football in terms of calling a hybrid press, and Arsenal were the best at it last season, where everyone would almost be in a shape, but as soon as one pass was made, everyone would just jump, and it was you ask any players play football, we used to do it in training at Liverpool, man-to-man for the next 5 minutes. No one likes it. No one enjoys it. You feel like you ain't got no time on the ball. And I think, and we're actually... I'm speaking to the guys producing Monday Night Football, I think we might do something like this on Monday, because I've been thinking about it a while. We've got Russell Martin coming on, who actually bought Aaron Ramsdale to the club. And what's happened now, we've always had goalkeeper's got to be on the ball. That's been getting said for the last 5-10 years. Okay, but that's okay. Get the ball. Can he pass it rather than kick it long? I actually think the goalie now, the next step forward is, if the people are brave enough, is that the goalkeeper's got to become a player. And I noticed this last year with this will be a separate podcast. This won't be on the cup final. This one.
To be fair, Ederson does that in the clip that in the viz that we showed there.
But I remember last season Porto played Arsenal, and we were at the game of the Champions League, and Porto's keeper came out and played but not here. Went there, and Arsenal couldn't stop them playing. So the man-to-man marking was dead because of the keeper. Because obviously it's 11v10 because your keeper can't get involved at the other end. And then a week later, Aston Villa went there. Emi Martinez did exactly the same, and we got the stats on Monday Night Football. The Porto goalkeeper and Emi Martinez had the most touches or the most passes any goalie's ever had against Arsenal. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because they were like, these are that good at pressing. We've either got to go long and just kill the press, or you've got to become a player. And I just think the days of everyone just going long, I'm not sure that's going to happen. There's so much. But my point being is, how many times do we see a keeper roll a ball out, someone gets it taken off and boom, it's a goal? So I think now the next stage of keepers is actually almost to become
a sweeper almost.
But actually almost. Have you seen people now baiting with I've been watching Martinez do it for Villa. They're almost standing on the ball, wait. Brighton used to do it, but with the centre backs. But the keepers are starting to do it now because he's the free man. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, I football sort of history, tactics, yada. I think, obviously, I think we all know that Guardiola's enforced a lot of what's been going on over the last few years and stuff. Obviously, he sort of found a way to almost transition through zonal marking, hasn't he? I think that's what everybody's done. Slow build up through the zones. That's what his sort of positional play is all about, really, isn't it? Is this just a consequence of that and people going, well, hang on, they know how to get through our zones? It's obvious when you think about it. We've been seeing it for 15 years. We're going to have to change this to man because it's so much more difficult to build up through us this way.
I think it's interesting in that. I think the man-to-man stuff only happens with the opposition keeper and when the other teams are playing around the back. I think once someone has decent possession here, I'm seeing a lot of 4-4-2 in zones and a lot of 4-2-4. Liverpool did that in lots of teams. I felt that came in this season. Not every game now, but I felt like I was seeing everyone doing that. It was almost like a front four and two behind. And this comes in where that was almost the setup rather than almost we'd see that in the past, or you'd see that still happens where one striker gets on the 10. But I'm seeing a lot of 4-4-2 without the ball or 4-2-4. So I don't think the man-to-man marking stuff happens here. I think it's only when the keeper's got, because if they can win it here, you're in a position, one pass and you've got a goal, basically. And also, if you lose your man or your man turns you or you get the tackle wrong, it's not going to kill you. It's here. You've still got 10 men behind the ball.
So what are the managers saying here? Go man-to-man. When the keeper's got the football, if you get to the halfway line, drop into your zone.
That's what it looks like to me. I mean, who knows what the messages are? I don't know, but I think the formations now in football, I think when Guardiola at Barcelona 4-3-3, everyone wants to play 4-3-3, kills number 10. So there's no real number 10s in the game now. Then it changes. There isn't actually 4-3-3 anymore. Because I think without the ball, nearly everyone's playing 4-4-2. And then with the ball, everyone's playing 3-4-3. So this idea that it was like 4-3-3. That was, that became the system, didn't it, for a while? I don't think that's actually a system anymore in terms of with the ball or without the ball. I don't think anyone's actually playing it. I'm seeing a lot of that 4-4-2 without the ball, in zones, man-to-man marking, obviously when it's higher up. But with the ball, we know everyone goes into a back three now, don't they? Or everyone's trying to get that box, as we're talking about there with Liverpool.
I think it's about just being flexible at the bottom line, really, isn't it? Like, I think a few years back we had the whole man marking thing with corners and set pieces and that. Then it moves towards zonal. Now it's in a position where it's kind of a hybrid of both. I think with pressing, Jurgen was big when it comes to popularising the press. He's always been zonal. Be interesting to see if he still was now. But rather than going completely towards man for man, it's just a bit of a hybrid depending on where the ball is. I think Bournemouth are probably the best in the Premier League at the moment when it comes to this sort of thing. Newcastle obviously flexible in that, but I think when it comes to the press like that, if they dare to do it at big pitch like Wembley and that, I think it's something that we could use, but it'd be interesting to see if Eddie Howe's brave enough to do it. Like.
Okay, moving it on slightly then. How did Newcastle win this game? You mentioned the midfield and the battle in there. Is there any examples of something else that they might look to sort of?
Well, Jamie mentions the wide areas. I think he's right. I think for me all season it's been Trent and Robertson as where you can get inroads against Liverpool. I think the Trent one in particular is something that Newcastle would have definitely looked at if Hall and Gordon were fit. They're not. Probably going to be Trippier and Barnes, I would assume. I think that's still probably enough to cause problems for Trent, given some of the players we have seen causing problems this season. Got some examples here. So this is one against Fulham. You can see Anthony Robinson, I think he got 2 assists this day. He was on his bike the whole game, teaming up on Trent with Iwobi. Trent's in a position there where he doesn't know which man to press, ends up going for both. If we scroll down a little bit more and go on to the next one, again you can see it there. He's getting overloaded. That's one way in which you can do it. Bournemouth is the next one. This is another one where, I think Gravenberch was getting dragged over this game and McAllister was kind of on his own in the centre. Liverpool were doing that just to cope with that Bournemouth overload there. And Manchester City did a little bit of a different way, where you're still targeting Trent, you're still targeting that side, but it's kind of more of a 1v1 thing. Could Harvey Barnes do the 1v1 stuff? Probably, yeah, I think he could. Could Newcastle do the overload stuff with Trippier and Barnes maybe doing it? Again, potentially. So I think there's scope there to use that. And I think beyond targeting Liverpool's right side, there's this, I don't know if you've noticed this, Jamie, but there's this weird thing lately with wide free kicks with Liverpool. We seem to be really good at defending corners, right? We've conceded 1 corner in the Premier League all season. As far as I know, we might have conceded another recently or not. That was against Ipswich when we were 4 up, so it didn't really matter. The wide free kicks we keep conceding from. There's an example earlier in the season against Arsenal. If we go on to the next one, that's against Newcastle who we're facing. We conceded from that. Then the next one, that was against Villa recently. We conceded from that. And I think there's another 2 that I haven't visualised. I don't really know what the issue is, as in this is how you fix it.
You look deep.
Yeah, I thought that. We looked at that, didn't we, before we started recording, and I think the obvious answer usually would be go deeper, but Chris said you could argue that you go higher there.
Oh yeah, I think sitting on the that one probably looks what most people might say about right the bottom. If you go back to the other ones, I mean that's deep.
Under Jurgen,
and also
they'd be on the edge of the area, wouldn't they?
What happens is as well, for instance, that one, and go to the next one, the Newcastle one. Stop shop. So what happens is, when you've got the edge of the box as a line, sometimes there's a defect. Now, there's always a perfect line somewhere, we should be here. But when you've got a line to actually stand on, it makes it easier for everyone.
For the offside, sir.
No, but I mean, to make sure everyone's on line, edge of the box, we don't move. That type of thing. Everyone's got a reference point, if you know what I mean. So it's an easy one to be, that should be higher. But even though, because you put the line as well, it makes it easier for everyone. You say 18-yard box, 18-yard. And the same on the Aston Villa one. So they look deep anyway. Sometimes when you're in a line, you're always worried someone's... But if it's like a reference point, everyone's feet, is on the line, you know to start with. But that is definitely a contrast with what we've seen, not just from Liverpool, for almost every team. The only teams who used to defend like that was Everton under Ancelotti. Yeah, I was going to say that. So that was an Italian... So you used to watch the Italian league. They go completely the other way. I think I watched Monday Night Footy on this. Did you do Monday Night Footy on this? Yeah, I definitely watched that, yeah. So the Italians, they just went completely the other way. and maybe put something in the kicker's head. Where do I aim for here? There's no space to put it into type of thing. So, yeah. I mean, I've never really noticed that, to be fair.
Honestly,
I've had a problem with it.
It's a weird one, like, and I think considering it's a final, you know, you can win a final with a 1-0. All you need is a set piece, and if we concede some kind of foul in that area, it was in my head the whole time of the Villa game, and we ended up conceding from it. So I'm just a little bit
Eddie Howe, I think, is the best coach in the league at set pieces.
Yeah, well, he had that at Bournemouth as well.
Bournemouth. We used to, I said, keep going back to Monday Night Football, the amount of things they used to have up their sleeve to do on set pieces, they will have something ready for us. And I always say this, because as being a player or watching it, it's always on the first one or the second one, maximum. Because for obvious reasons, you don't know how many you're going to get. So, and the players forget. So, you know,
that's what we were talking about this last week.
We did a show on this recently,
and we wondered whether it's just because they might forget a little bit later in.
Well, Liverpool are doing it though. That's what the show was on.
So the goal Man City scored against us with John Stones at the near post was that last season. First corner from that side.
One we did against City recently was first
corner from that side. So that's what it'll always be. So I used to always think when I was a player, because you used to know yourself, you're doing them. So I used to, whenever you go somewhere, normally away from home, because you'd feel you'd be under pressure a little bit more. First set piece, you've got to be like, you know, Everton, Karate's not switched on. That's something they've worked on. They've seen that before. They haven't just put that ball down, Brantwaite, and just done that. They've thought any free kick in this area, this is what we're going to do.
Well, what is it then? Do you think it's obviously a change of set pieces and stuff?
Everton.
But it wasn't a wide one. It was more of a. It was more.
Yeah.
Maybe
a bit more sensible. Yeah.
Do you think it's changing coaches and it's just the philosophy of Slot to do that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that wouldn't be the players just dropping back, I don't think. Especially when you see them there. There's no right or wrong. It's just whether it's formation, where you set up. We all like different things, but it's an opinion, isn't it? But it's just about being good at what you do. You know what I mean?
Because I always thought, like, the way that Arsenal do it now, they've got a man behind your defensive line, haven't they?
Yeah.
Let's say, you know...
But that's been happening a while, that.
Yeah, exactly. But they put a man there, and they'll almost block him off. If you're deeper, that can't happen, was my sort of thoughts on it.
Well, the thing we used to try and do, and you've got to be it's very brave. Benitez used to say to us in situations like that, or sometimes very late in the game, and it was a lot of pressure on, push out for offside. And because I was sort of like the organiser or the leader at the back, I'd decide on that. I didn't have the bottle to do it. The thought of like defending a set piece and saying, right, come on, we're pushing out for offside before the fella kicks it, like 5 minutes to go against Everton in the derby. So we did it once, right? And it was against Aston Villa at home. I don't think it was a pressure moment, to be fair. I think I decided to do it. They scored, it got given for offside, but it was onside. One of our players didn't come out. It was an attack. I think it was Riera or someone like that, or Babel didn't get out in time. Yeah.
Wow.
And the reason, and what we used to do was, we used to call it odd numbers. So we, instead of you just going 9, 7, you just shouting numbers. Everyone, like, we know what odd numbers means, don't we? We're going to get out as soon as he kicks it. But I only had the bottle to it once and it didn't work. But we got away with it.
In a non-pressure situation.
I know, practicing.
I think with Jürgen as well, there was an element of being brave with the. There was a point where defending free kicks like that, the players wouldn't move until the ball was kicked.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of players naturally, instinctual thing is like, as he approaches to kick it, you start just creeping like. So I think that was but that caused a lot of players off guard.
I used to think that was very brave. I'm not sure I'd been able to do that. That thought of like, I'm not moving till he kicks it. It's like, oh.
Feels like you need to run, don't you?
Yeah, I feel like you need to be. Yeah, oh God. I used to watch Liverpool do it. I'd be terrified.
Yeah, no, and it was such a high line as well. There was so much space for them to run into, wasn't there? Okay, well, the final thing, I suppose. Then, the last game against them was only a week or so ago. 2-0 victory. What can Liverpool learn from that one?
You know what? I've got to be honest. I didn't see the game. I was here. I was flying to Tokyo to watch my wife do the marathon over there. So I was following her on my phone. And so what did he do the man marking stuff then? You're asking about them doing it at Wembley. That's what I wanted to ask you before. What did he do at Anfield?
No, they did, yeah, to be fair. But I think what I noticed most at Anfield was, when you mentioned strengths, I said Eddie Howe, transition game, when the ball's loose, they're quite good at going for the throw type thing. But in that game, if you're going the other way, they're really not. So if you can get them running backwards, mate, if you can kind of get them going the other way a little bit, because of the players they got in the back line potentially or something like that, they seemed quite open, I felt. And I think the 2 goals Liverpool scored were situations like that.
Is there something in... I was going off the stats, so I'm sort of following the game on social media. See, we're 1-0. My dad's phoning me how the game's going on. Arsenal have drew anyway, their game's finished, so you're thinking, okay, we're all right. But I looked, we didn't create a lot, did we? I know we won 2-0, did we? I was looking at the XG and stuff like that, and I was thinking...
We just held them an arm's length, to be honest.
I know, but I just thought... You know, I think there was definitely a spell in the season when their defensive record was really good. There was like a spell of like 7 or 8 games where it was like... I'm not sure that it wasn't it? Yeah. And then I saw what we'd done there and I was a bit like... I know we'd had a lot of games, so that might be something, and we won 2-0, it looks comfortable, but it just stayed in the head a little bit like, we didn't absolutely open them up type of thing as a lot. And it just makes me think a little bit, will he think... Anthony Gordon not there? Is Isak 100% fit? Keeps coming off in games. Have we got enough to really go for them?
Yeah.
And that just makes me keep thinking. Would he think, you know what? Let's just stay in the game as long as we can. Set piece, just wait for some. Almost just.
Yeah, well, it could give him that license. It could give him that license to like almost, not necessarily sit in, but like not necessarily go for it from the off. You know what I mean? That sort of thing where you're sitting a little bit more than usual, maybe a bit of a mid-block type thing. Just where no one's exposed, for the first like hour or so and see where the game is or something. But you could argue with the likes of Hall fit, Botman, Gordon, all that stuff. You could argue maybe they'll have a bit more of a reason to go for Liverpool, but maybe they'll just kind of accept the underdog spot.
Yeah, and what I'm really interested in, obviously, the atmosphere is going to be electric. I mean, Newcastle fans and Liverpool fans in a final together. Thankfully, their coach is a little bit longer than ours, so their hangovers will probably kick in around half-time or something. Ours, we might be able to get to last until 90 minutes. But no, it promises to be a great day and a great atmosphere. You're working it for Sky Sports, of course. Dare I ask for a score prediction? Do we do them?
I'll let you go first, mate.
I think Liverpool will win 3-1.
Okay.
I'm going to say 2-0 Liverpool. Okay. I see similarities with this, for some reason, and the Spurs Champions League final. When we faced Spurs. When going into that one, Spurs played really well on the day, to be fair, but Liverpool just... I think going back to that culture thing, when you're just used to playing finals, it's not too much of a big game. And I think when Liverpool really need to keep a clean sheet, it does get kept. Like if you think of the Carabao last year when we had the kids at the end, Canate and Virgil, I think it was Carragher as well that day, weren't it? They were just immense, mate. And recently, PSG, Man City, home and away, I think it'll be one of them. And I think with Newcastle being without Gordon as well, I think Liverpool might keep a clean sheet in this one and just go from there, really.
Okay, and then I suppose the final question then actually, Jamie, is what does the Carabao winning the Carabao actually do for you? Because obviously you've seen teams like teams you played in that it really gives a lift to. You've seen other teams where it doesn't really do anything. Like as a player, surely you'd rather win a trophy early doors than not.
I love the Carabao Cup, mate. I think it's a better competition than the FA Cup. I think there's obviously more prestige in winning the FA Cup. You say to someone, we won the FA Cups, it's bigger than winning, the Carabao Cup. But I think the Carabao Cup for a long time has been a better competition. I think the FA Cup is helping out with having no replays, but I think the Carabao Cup, it's midweek, the night games, every game's finished on the night, and also the fact that the competition is a standalone cup final in, early March. I always think the FA Cup final's fighting with the Premier League. Who's going for the title? The Champions League final's only around the corner. It sounds terrible, right? I'm happy when we go out the FA Cup, and I love the FA Cup. But I was delighted we weren't playing at the weekend against Man City.
I said this to you, we can go past it.
But people who go, you can't ever say that. It's reality. Imagine having the FA Cup now in the middle of all this. When Man United beat Arsenal in the FA Cup this season, I felt like Liverpool lost the game of football. I was devastated. I was on holiday. I was like, you're joking. They've beat... Because I thought they'd beat Man United. And I just remembered the season before. Arsenal on this run. I'm not advocating losing games, because when I'm watching Liverpool against Plymouth, I'm still going, no one wants to score. But in the reality, when the game's finished, I'm like, it's not the end of the world. Because the Carabao...
You don't need those games when you're trying to win a league and progressing.
But the Carabao Cup doesn't affect your league. The FA Cup does. The semi-final game has to get moved to a midweek, so then you're playing 3 league games in a week. The FA Cup final means you've got 3 games. Liverpool's last away game could still be a midweek because Brighton could get the cup final. We could play on a Thursday night. We've got a healthy lead now. But imagine you're going for the league. Now, that wouldn't be us in the cup final. That's Brighton in the cup final. But then you've got to go away to Brighton on a Thursday night because the UEFA Cup finals on the Wednesday. I've looked into all of this. Don't worry about it. That'd be a Thursday night away in Brighton. Now you'd have to play on the Sunday. Now, we could still be in that position with the league. I think, fingers crossed, doesn't look like we're going to be. But I just think it gets in the way. It gets in the way of the league.
I agree. I've got to be honest. I think this idea of the quad, by the way, as well, is because people like the idea of competing for the quad, but I just don't think it's never.
I got to say the word once about 3 days before we got beat by Plymouth, and thankfully it's over because you don't want that. You don't want people talking about that all the time, do you? If my thing on it is, for what it's worth, if you're gonna go out, don't go out in the quarters or the fucking semis. Go out early doors. Because it's a waste of everyone's time if you go out further down the line anyway, innit? So there you go.
Why are we so good in the Carabao but so bad in the FA Cup? That's what it feels like to me.
Normally I'd say it's the draw, but this time around I can't say that. But we've had United in the 4th round.
No, but I mean, even when we were, I'm not talking about lately, even when we were playing, we either won it or went out early. We never got to like lost quarters or semis. We never seem to have a decent run.
Teams who are in Europe, maybe? Or,
I don't know.
And maybe it's the fact that it starts in January and half of our squad have been going to the African Cup of Nations or something as well.
Don't mention that.
I know. Well, I can mention it. You definitely can't mention it, that's for sure. Anyway, that has been the deep dive with Jamie Carragher and Josh Williams. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving up your time as always, Jamie. And Josh, thanks for joining me as ever. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and we'll see you all soon. Ta-ra.